All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Talk Recovery. I'm really glad you're here tonight. A couple things up front. I'm still having some issues with congestion, a little bit of issue with my voice. So I may be coughing a little bit tonight. You're going to see me popping cough drops or mints in my mouth, that kind of thing. And I ask that you would just bear with me and give me some grace in that this evening. I'm really glad you're here tonight. I really look forward to these Tuesday evenings that we have together. And I know some of you are here live. Some of you view here on Facebook later. And some of you view on some of my other platforms later. Actually, honestly, there are a lot more views later after this is posted than there are live. But some of you show up here regularly too. And I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the comments that I get. Many of you send me messages in email or through some other methods. And yeah, I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here with me. If you're watching live tonight, take a minute, say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're checking in from. Interested in knowing where the viewers are from. It's really surprised me. I've had views from multiple states across the country and from several other countries. And it's been really encouraging to hear some of those comments and hear about some of those places that where you're jumping in here and participating in what we're doing. If you're watching the replay later, type replay. Always get back to those and take a look at those. And again, I'd be interested in knowing where you're watching from. Tonight, we are going to be talking about something that comes up regularly in recovery, but it also comes up in relationships, and it even can come up in our faith communities and other places. Our topic tonight is going to be honesty versus vulnerability. And yeah, Eakin Avenue, right here in the local area. Yeah, we're going to talk tonight about honesty versus vulnerability. Most of us growing up were taught to be honest, to tell the truth, not to lie, to be transparent. Now, not all of us have always done the best at being honest. I've got to be honest here. In my active addiction, I was not an honest person. In fact, when somebody asked me a question or expected a response, my immediate thought wasn't, what's the truth? My immediate thought was, what do I need to tell them to make them happy and to keep me out of trouble? But I do have to say, I was always told and taught that I should be honest. And in recovery, though, we learn about the need for something even deeper than honesty. We can be honest and still be completely unknown. Here's a line that I say a lot with guys that I work with, and I want you to hear this statement clearly. I tell guys all the time, not everybody deserves to hear your story, but somebody has to. Now, we're going to talk tonight some about what that means and why it matters and how learning the difference can transform our recovery. The fact is, honesty matters. Honesty is a very important thing. It keeps us out of denial. So that carries the idea that we have to be honest with other people, but we also have to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes, and again, speaking about myself, sometimes honesty with myself was more difficult than being honest with other people. Honesty keeps us out of denial, and honesty keeps secrets from killing us. What's really sad is that in addiction, we'll tend to lie to other people, but the person we lie to the most is ourselves. Can you relate to that? Do you hear what I'm saying there? Honesty with myself is extremely difficult. Now, in recovery spaces, honesty often sounds like these kind of statements. In honesty, we may say, I'm struggling. We might say something like, I'm dysregulated. I made that statement to somebody today. I'm feeling dysregulated. We may, an honest statement for us in recovery might be, I've had a hard week. I'm having a hard day. It might be something like, I didn't act out today. It might be telling somebody, I did act out. I relapsed. So honesty is an important thing in recovery, and honesty matters very much. And again, that honesty needs to be with other people, but it also needs to be with ourselves. I have to be honest with myself about my struggles, about what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling. And all of that is good, and all of that is necessary. But honesty alone, honesty all by itself, still works a lot of times to keep us protected. Have you ever noticed, maybe if you've got kids, you've had kids that you ask a question and what they tell you technically is the truth. It's just not the whole truth. And I with my kids would generally respond, why did you lie to me? And they would say, well, I didn't lie. And I would have to agree. They didn't lie, but they didn't tell the whole truth. And so honesty by itself can still be used to keep us protected. Sometimes in recovery, we use that approach with family members, with our spouses. We might use it with our sponsor, where technically we don't lie, we just don't tell the whole truth. So honesty, when we speak honestly, honesty often shares information. Vulnerability, on the other hand, shares exposure. It shares those areas where what we're sharing, if it's shared with the wrong person, could put us at risk. Honesty answers what's happening with me in the present, right now. Vulnerability, on the other hand, answers what is what's happening doing to me. How am I reacting to it? Am I reacting or am I responding? What's it doing to me emotionally? What's it doing to me physically? How am I wanting to react? What am I feeling in my body? Vulnerability. How is what's happening, what's that doing to me? So let me slow this down for a minute and give an example, okay? I attend a Monday night in-person recovery group. I attend every week. And we normally open that group. We've got a couple readings, and then we do a check-in. We will go around, introduce ourselves, and we'll share why we're there. And so we'll go around, and I might say something like, "Hey guys, I'm Ron," and I might share with them, "I'm dysregulated today." Now that statement, "I'm dysregulated today," that could be an honest statement. I'm dysregulated. I have things going on inside of me. It can be honest. It may not be a lie. I may be telling the truth. But I want you to notice what I'm not doing with that statement. All right? With that statement, I have stated truth. I have spoken honestly. But what I haven't let you see is how intense that dysregulation is. What is that state of dysregulation doing to me emotionally? How's it affecting my behavior? How intense is it? How close might that dysregulation be pushing me towards a bad decision, maybe even a relapse? So in that statement, "I'm dysregulated today," I've been honest, I've shared truth, but what I've shared is information without exposure, without vulnerability. So let me add some vulnerability. What if I come into that meeting and instead of saying, "I feel dysregulated today," I add to that. I say, "Hey guys, I'm Ron, and I'm feeling dysregulated today." And because of that dysregulation, I had an argument with a family member or a friend before I came into town. And because of that, I was driving down the interstate at 90 miles an hour on the way here, and I got pulled over. I yelled at the cop that pulled me over. Man, I got a big ticket, and I was really close to being arrested. Now, what's the difference in those two sets of things that I've shared? In both of them, I've shared that I'm dysregulated today. And in both cases, that was honest. But in that second example, I've been vulnerable. And what makes that second example vulnerable? It's the idea that I'm sharing about how I'm reacting to that dysregulation. That idea of driving. Have you ever gotten angry and you get aggressive on the road? You tailgate people, you cut people off, you yell and cuss at people because you know they can't hear you. Yeah, dysregulation. But that doesn't look nearly as clean as me just saying I'm feeling dysregulated. I didn't just tell my emotional state. What I did in that second example is I let you see me, not just my physical body, that I'm an old bald guy with a long beard, and in the winter I like flannel shirts. I didn't let you just see that. With that second statement, I'll let you see my reactivity, how I'm reacting. I'm not responding in a rational, calm way. I'm reacting and I'm lashing out. I'm letting, in that second statement, I'm letting you see my loss of control. I'm letting you see my risk. My behavior is putting me at risk. And I'm letting you see my need for support. Do you see the difference there? If you've got thoughts about that, stick them into the comments. I'd be interested in hearing what you think. But that is a picture, I believe, of the difference between honesty and vulnerability. Now, vulnerability matters because vulnerability tells the truth about the cost that I'm experiencing related to what's happening with me, to what's going on with me. Now, here's something that I want to say that I want to be very clear about. I need you to listen closely to. Here's what vulnerability doesn't mean. Vulnerability does not mean that we tell everybody everything about what's going on with us. We don't need to stand on a box on a street corner and shout our struggles to the world. I mean, is that safe? It's not. It doesn't mean telling everybody anything. And this is where that line that I shared a minute ago matters. Not everybody deserves to hear your story, but somebody has to. In order for us to be vulnerable, that requires discernment on my part, requires discernment on your part. The truth is, some people are safe and some people aren't. I'm sure you've experienced that before, that some people are not safe. Some people are grounded. Some people are trustworthy. Some people are capable of responding well. One of the guys in my Monday night group, a lot of times as he's checking in, he'll share, my name is so-and-so, and I'm here because this is a safe place for me. I can share what's really happening, and I don't have to worry about it showing up on somebody's Facebook feed. Have you ever experienced that? That you share something with somebody, and all of a sudden it gets shared with all kinds of other people. Vulnerability is risky, and that's why it requires discernment. We need to share with people who are worthy to hear our story. People where we've been able to examine their behavior. We've been able to see how they respond. We've been able to observe that they're trustworthy and that they're capable of showing care. Now, so some people are safe, some people are trustworthy, and some people aren't. Now, something we have to be careful of, some people aren't safe for us to be vulnerable with, and that doesn't necessarily make them bad people. But what it does is it means that we draw a boundary. We talked about boundaries last week, I think. It means that we draw a boundary and that some people don't get access to my inner world. I'm still honest, but I'm not vulnerable with those people. Honesty can happen anywhere, really, with anybody. Vulnerability, on the other hand, belongs in safe relationship. Now, how do we find those safe relationships? For some of us, for many of us, especially in recovery, vulnerability can be terrifying. Why is that? It's because we've experienced those unsafe relationships and those unsafe places in our past. We've had people who've judged. We've had people who have shamed. We've had people who have spread our business everywhere. We've experienced that. Sometimes in some of our closest relationships, with a spouse, with a family member, maybe with a family member when we were children. And so vulnerability belongs in safe relationship, but being able to find those safe relationships and establishing those safe relationships requires us to interact with other people. We can't live in isolation and practice vulnerability. It just can't happen. That's one of the reasons why community connection is so important. You remember there's a slogan that has been around for a number of years now. Came from a guy by the name of Johann Hari, and it says, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is healthy community. And I have found that to be true. And a lot of people I know have found that to be true. That's why vulnerability isn't oversharing. Vulnerability is the idea of appropriate sharing in the right place and in the right relationship. Now, let me ask you, and if you feel like it, stick your response in the comments. Who is one person in your life who has earned the right to hear your story? Somebody that you know you can trust. It can be an individual person. It can be a group that you're involved in. My Monday night group is a safe place for me. I can go into that group and I can share and I can be honest. And I know I'm not going to be shamed. I'm not going to be judged. People are going to listen and people are going to care. They're not even going to jump in and try to fix me. They're not going to give me 3 steps to get this all fixed. And that's not what I'm looking for. A lot of times, that healthy community, recognizing that place of vulnerability, for me, can be beginning to hold a conversation with an individual or entering into a group, and I begin to share. And maybe I'm a little on edge when I first start to share. I'm not ready to jump right in and share it all, but I begin to open up and I look at that person that I'm talking to, whether it's an individual or whether it's a group. And many times, especially in groups, this is what I've experienced in my Monday night group and in another online group that I attend, is that I will start to share. And as I watch people's faces on the screen or around the room, as I'm talking about something that I'm struggling with, as I'm beginning to open up, I see people around that circle, across that table, on that screen. I see people begin to nod their heads while I'm talking. And all of a sudden, I recognize that we may not have experienced the exact same thing, but they understand what I'm talking about. They hear me and they care. So, many of us in recovery, in relationships, many of us stop at honesty. And we stop at honesty, many of us, because we've tried vulnerability in the past, and that vulnerability came with a cost. Maybe we opened up and were vulnerable and we were punished. Maybe we were vulnerable and we were mocked. we were vulnerable and we were ignored. Or we were vulnerable and somebody used that vulnerability, struggling with my words here, somebody used that vulnerability against us. They weren't safe. And unfortunately, sometimes these experiences where our vulnerability wasn't honored and wasn't handled in a healthy way, sometimes this took place in relationships with a family member, with a spouse. Sometimes it took place when we were children in our homes and with our parents and our caregivers, or with our siblings. And so we learned through these experiences, just share the facts and stay safe. In situations like that, honesty became a shield. I'm going to tell enough that they can't accuse me of lying, but I'm not going to tell any more than I absolutely have to. Vulnerability felt dangerous. But here's the truth. Recovery doesn't just need honesty. Recovery needs connection. And in order for us to experience connection, it requires vulnerability with the right people. So, what's the structure of healthy vulnerability? Healthy vulnerability usually includes four things, four parts. First of all, healthy vulnerability includes what we're feeling. I'm feeling dysregulated. My whole body is tense and tight. I'm feeling scared. Vulnerability includes our internal experience. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling angry. I am so fearful. I'm feeling hurt emotionally, maybe. Vulnerability includes the impact of this experience and this feeling. In my example earlier, I'd had an argument or a fight with a family member or a friend. And the impact of that is that I climb into my truck and I'm squeezing the steering wheel so tight, I'm amazed it didn't break. I'm speeding, I'm driving faster than I should. I'm riding on people's bumpers. I'm swerving and cutting around people and cutting in on them close. When they don't get out of my way, when they don't recognize that the world revolves around me, I'm yelling and I'm cussing at them, even though I know they can't hear me. In my example, I drove recklessly, I yelled at a cop, and I almost got arrested. It's the impact and it's the behavior that I exhibit as a result of what I'm experiencing and feeling. That's three parts. And then the fourth part, and this is an important part, is vulnerability includes my need. In that situation, my need may have looked something like, I need help slowing down and regulating. I just need somebody to listen, to help me focus on the present, to quit catastrophizing and looking for the worst. You know, most of the time, what I need is just somebody to listen. When somebody listens, when they show that they care, when they express understanding, that helps me, their presence helps me to self-regulate. So vulnerability isn't just exposure, laying things out there. Vulnerability contains an invitation. When I make myself vulnerable, I'm inviting support from those people I'm being vulnerable to. Now, I'll tell you something that can be difficult, especially for men. Maybe women too, but I've never been a woman, so I can't speak accurately from that. But there have been times when I have been vulnerable with another man, and they've just reached across and laid a hand on my shoulder or laid a hand on my arm. And a part of me becomes uncomfortable, but a part of me relaxes. In my vulnerability, I've issued an invitation for support. I'm issuing an invitation in my vulnerability for accountability. That may mean that later today you shoot me a text or you give me a call and you say, "Hey Ron, how are you doing, man? Have you been able to calm yourself? Are you feeling more regulated? How are you doing?" It is an invitation for presence. I was in a ministry for years, and it used to amaze me that a lot of people were really uncomfortable with hospital visits. I got someplace I'm going with this story. But a lot of people were really uncomfortable with hospital visits. A friend of mine, Rob, was a hospice chaplain and a hospital chaplain for many, many years. Man, he wasn't uncomfortable with those visits. And I got to be honest with you, when I was in the ministry, I wasn't uncomfortable with those visits. I actually found them to be pretty easy, because most of the time what people were looking for was not for me to come in with an answer, was not for me to come in with a cure to their problems. What they were looking for is presence. A lot of times those hospital visits just meant that I walked in and I sat with them. If they talked, I listened and I nodded. I laid a hand on their arm. I always said a prayer with them before I left. But it was about presence, just knowing that somebody was there with them. And that's an invitation that we invite for ourselves when we open up with vulnerability. We invite people to step into our lives with their presence. And sometimes that's all that I need, is just somebody to be there with me. In fact, I'll share a story with you. That friend of mine, Rob, that was that hospital chaplain and hospice chaplain for all those years, early, right after I was released from prison, I was crushed. I came out of prison thinking that I was cured of my addiction and my struggle. Didn't take me very long to find out that I wasn't cured. I just was locked up 2 years and didn't have access to anything. And as I found that, and It was like a big revelation, man. You are as screwed up as you've ever been. And I was broken. And I reached out to my friend Rob, and he came over to my apartment, and I was sitting in the middle of the living room floor, bawling my eyes out. You talk about dysregulation. I was in a bad place. And you know what my friend Rob did? Let me tell you what he didn't do. He didn't come in and say, why can't you get your act together? He didn't come in and say, here are 3 steps, man, that'll make everything better. My friend Rob walked into my apartment and sat down in the middle of my living room floor with me, and he cried with me. And man, that was what my heart needed, was his presence. And man, that was such a blessing, such a help for me in that time. And he didn't give me any advice. He didn't fix it all. He just sat there and hurt with me and acknowledged my pain. And then the 4th thing that vulnerability invites, when we're vulnerable, we are issuing an invitation for care. We're telling those people we're vulnerable with, I need care. I need comfort. And again, the point to this is not everybody gets that invitation. We don't turn to everybody with this vulnerability and with this invitation for these things: support, accountability, presence, and care. Not everybody deserves to hear your story, but somebody has to. You have to find that place where you can be open and where you can be vulnerable, where you can receive care, presence, accountability, and support. That means that you have to step out and interact with people. A friend of mine that is here a lot of times on Tuesday evenings in these Facebook Lives, a friend of mine that's here with me a lot, may be here this evening. When I first met him, he used to tell me point blank, I hate people. He was pretty blunt. He was pretty bold. Now that statement, when he made that statement was based on experience that he had had in the past. What he experienced was some of his family members had not been safe. Not all of them, but some of them had not been safe. What he had experienced is that he had opened up and been vulnerable to some people in his past, and he found that they couldn't be trusted. And I suggested that he begin to attend a meeting, that he look for a place where he could begin to interact with people. And oh man, he pushed back and he resisted. But eventually, and here's the thing, I convinced him to visit an AA meeting that was in his community. And he's not even an alcoholic. All AA says that you have to do to be welcome is have a desire to quit drinking. Now, he didn't have a drinking problem, but he began to attend those meetings. And he began to experience a sense of safety there. Eventually, he stopped attending those AA meetings and he began to attend other meetings. He's attended Celebrate Recovery meetings. He's attended 12-step studies. He's plugged into a church that he attends regularly, where he's active, where he now serves on a team there, and he's building community there. And he's creating and discovering that safe place where he can open up and where he can be vulnerable. And do you know what's coming with that? He struggles a lot still with people. He'll tell you really quick. You know, when we first met, he had to interact with some people because of his work, but he only interacted with people when he had to. And then he'd come home to his dog, and he told me, I can trust my dog. It's not going to stab me in the back. It's not going to talk about me. It's not going to sell me out. But you know what? He's beginning to experience relationships that are similar to the relationship that he has with his dog. He's beginning to meet people and interact with people in communities where he's able to open up and share, where he's able to be vulnerable. And I'll tell you what I have seen take place in him. And when he's honest with himself, what he sees taking place in him, and that is his recovery has begun to grow. He still struggles, but he's not acting out every day. There's more and more time between those struggles. There's more and more success and health in his recovery life. And it comes as he experiences healthy community in that safe place where he can practice vulnerability. Not everybody deserves to hear your story, but somebody has to. Now, here's a practice that I have for you this week. It's a simple practice, and I would encourage you to do this regularly as you move through this week before we get together again next Tuesday. When you check in, and you should be checking in regularly with yourself and with somebody else, a sponsor, a group, a friend. When you check in, ask yourself 2 questions. First of all, am I being honest? Am I practicing truthfulness in my interactions with others and with myself? And again, for me, sometimes that honesty with myself is what is most difficult. Am I being honest? And then the second question takes that a step further. Am I being vulnerable with the right person? Am I reaching out and making connections where I have an opportunity to find that right person, to find that solid, safe connection? Am I being honest? And am I being vulnerable with the right person? That's your 2 questions for this week. I'd encourage you to ask yourself that daily. And I'm interested in hearing your answer and how things go for you this week. Try adding one deeper layer in a safe space. Instead of checking in with somebody or with yourself and saying, for instance, I'm stressed, take that to a deeper level and add some vulnerability. What that might do is change that statement, I'm stressed, which is honest, which is truthful. It might add some depth to that statement, and it might sound something like, I'm stressed, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'm going to isolate if I don't reach out and make connection. Now that's vulnerability. And that's vulnerability practiced in a wise way. Now, tonight we've been talking about honesty versus vulnerability. The idea that honesty isn't enough in recovery. It's not enough. We need that connection where we can make ourselves vulnerable. Honesty tells the truth. Vulnerability lets someone see the truth in me and what I'm experiencing. And again, I'm going to say it one more time. You need to remember this. Not everybody deserves to hear your story, but somebody has to. If you don't let anybody see the deeper story in your life, then you don't give recovery a chance to meet you there. And your recovery is not going to be complete. Your life's not going to be full. As we're wrapping up, I'd love to hear one thought from you. One thing. If you're here, you can put it in the comments tonight. If you're watching the replay on Facebook, comment it there. If you're on one of my other platforms, answer this question for me as we come to a close. What's one insight from tonight that has stuck with you? Is there something that you've heard that you can say, I need to put that into practice in my life? I need to step into that. Drop it in the comments, whether you're here live or whether you're watching on a replay. Next week, we'll be back here Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back live. And then afterwards, this will be posted on Facebook for 60 days, 30 days. I think 60 days. It stays live, stays up on Facebook. But it will be on my other platforms, especially YouTube. It'll be on there, gee whiz, who knows how long, forever maybe. Next week, when we come together, Tuesday, 8 p.m., we're going to talk about learning to trust again. With yourself, learning to trust yourself, learning to trust others, and learning to trust God. A lot of times in recovery, we focus on allowing others, on how we can get others to trust us again. But an important part of recovery is learning how we can trust them. Can I trust myself? How do I learn how to do that again? Can I trust people around me? Can I trust God? You know, a lot of us struggle with trusting God. And I'll tell you a secret here tonight. He doesn't get angry because of that. He doesn't get angry when we question whether he's trustworthy or not. He's big enough to handle that. In fact, I would challenge you that when you struggle with trusting him, he wants you to let him know about that. He's not going to get his feelings hurt. He can handle it. And as we're able to get honest with him about what we're experiencing, then he is able to begin to do a work in us. So trust. Next Tuesday, learning to trust again with yourself, with others, and with God. And if you want help discerning who is safe to share with, how to share wisely, where to find those places where you can meet people and you can be vulnerable. Feel free to email me at rwcoaching2@gmail.com. I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank you for your honesty with yourself and with others. And I want to thank you for your courage to be vulnerable with the right people. And I will see you all here next Tuesday as we talk about learning to trust again. I'll see you guys next week.